The Resident Evil 4 remake is a masterpiece. It keeps enough elements from the original game to the point where it still feels like it's RE4, but they add and improve on so many things that it's enough to make it feel different. The graphics and overall presentation of the game is seriously spectacular. It has this creepy, eerie feeling while you're going through places like the forest, and it reminds me of the original RE4. When you get to the village and have to go through the intense prologue fight, you are literally running for your life and getting off some shots if you can. If you never played the first one, then be prepared to have your mind blown with how insane this sequence and the rest of the game is. And you would be just fine playing this remake because it has most of the original story, but it makes it more cinematic, more combat, but revising it a little. And speaking of the combat, I honestly don't have any words for how impressive it is. The combat in this remake is definitely the part that they improved upon the most. Every weapon feels amazing, and they kept every single one from the first game. They improved on each, and then added a few more as well. But it's not just the guns that make the combat feel great. It's also thanks to the new parry mechanic added. Leon can parry certain attacks with his knife, and it helps tremendously in keeping you alive and making you look cool as hell. Getting a perfect parry allows you to get a free roundhouse kick in to hopefully put down those enemies you're running from. But running from the enemies and your problems is much better this time around. The tank-like controls are completely gone now, which allows for fluid, fast, and smooth combat, along with overall movement. And it makes the newly added stealth mechanic feel even better. Okay. It's not an actual stealth system, but when you crouch walk up to enemies, you can sneak attack them and get a quiet kill basically. It's not going to work to completely take out each enemy in the area, but it helps you to thin the herd, I'll say. Like, for example, in some parts, there might be 11 different enemies to kill. Stealth killing 3 or 4 of them will help a lot, and it'll help you progress to the next area fast. Well, that's assuming that you're not doing any of the side content that they've added in the remake. Yeah, Capcom added these mini side quests in the remake to make the game feel a little less linear. Now, they're not like fully fleshed out side stories, but it might be something like a note left by a worker saying, shoot the 5 rats in the warehouse, with a quick little 2 or 3 sentence backstory, or things like that. But for the most part, there weren't any super tedious tasks to complete or anything, and it doesn't ruin the pacing of the game. But speaking of the pacing in this game is even better than before. I really did not think they can improve it this much, but they did. Each section of the game just flows beautifully. When you think it's only been 30 or 45 minutes have passed, 4 hours just fly by. Even just getting resources and backtracking doesn't feel annoying. But it is terrifying. They actually cranked up the horror in this game. It's not as intense as Biohazard, so don't worry, but it definitely is up there. The enemy designs are even creepier, and if you haven't seen a lot of the enemy designs, then you're in for a ride. And to add to this new horror, the tone of the game is much, much darker than before. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still pretty stupid and you do some crazy things. The environments can get super creepy, and the enemies are, honestly, some of them are so just terrifying. I never thought I would be cowering away in fear at Resident Evil enemies again after playing RE2, but here we are. The first game did have a sort of dark and creepy tone, but the remake just takes it to a whole nother level. Everything feels familiar but different at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like, it's RE4, and they kept a lot of the same stuff to make sure that people do still feel like they're playing Resident Evil 4. But they added so much new stuff that honestly the game is just better than ever. I think it's safe to say this is the best remake ever. And the way that they also try to make it a sequel to the Resident Evil 2 remake, and they slightly tie in the stuff that happened in that game to this, is just amazing. Overall, the game is really just great, and I don't see why you wouldn't buy it. They even improved on Ashley. Yes, they improved on that annoying girl from the last game. She actually does stuff in the game now and adds a lot more to the story. And she even has a little bit of chemistry with Leon, I'll say. And she even helps out during the game sometimes, which I really appreciate. And they simplified her, so you don't have to keep such a close watch of her and her health and things like that. Just make sure she doesn't die, basically. The story itself is obviously superb. We know it. Resident Evil 4 was one of the best stories ever. And overall, again, this game, guys, is a masterpiece. This is a definite buy if you can. So I would recommend Resident Evil 4 Remake. But click on the screen to see what I think about Gotham Knights and if you should actually buy it or not. Go. See you guys later.